All right, welcome everybody. Welcome everyone to the 2026 budgeting playbook. We're going to give a few minutes as a few people start trickling in the waiting room. As we get started, if you can just type a message into our chat just to make sure everything's working properly, where you're calling in from. So that's a good starter here. New Jersey, Russ, welcome. Excellent. NYC, great. Atlanta, Washington, all across the country, Bay Area. Liz from Chicago, Windy City. Great. And as people are waiting here, Dan, you're in Toronto right now, right? And your Blue Jays
Yeah,
are doing pretty well. I know you're following the World Series. So
we we're doing pretty well. I'm seeing some folks from California. No one from LA specifically just yet, but yeah, no, enjoying it. It's been good. It's been a bit surprising.
excellent. We're just going to give it one more minute here
Awesome.
before we kind of get started. Oh, Brazil International. Michael, welcome. All right, great. And as this is the 2026 Budgeting Playbook webinar, we do have a quick survey that Maya, who's behind the scenes here, is going to launch, and that's going to kick things off. So it's 3 quick questions just to get some feelers out there about how budgeting season is going for you. So Maya, whenever you're ready, feel free to launch that poll, and we'll give everybody a minute here to answer these questions. Perfect. We're going to close the poll at in about 2 minutes at 2:05. So we got 3 quick questions here. When you think of budgeting season, what's the first word that comes to mind? Question number 2 is end to end between preparing templates, collecting feedback, review cycles. How many hours do you spend on budgeting and reforecasting in a year? So that's a multiple choice question. So give us your best estimate there. And then the last question is, what is the most difficult part about creating an annual budget for your company and or the clients that you service? So those are just these 3 quick questions. And we'll give everybody a minute here to answer those questions to the best of their ability, and then we'll share the results accordingly. And Daniel, you better believe that in a few minutes we're going to be asking these 8 types of questions to get your perspective too.
Yeah,
But
I'm prepared.
yeah, we've got a few different people in the audience. We've got those who are running their finance teams for their company. We have fractional CFOs who are advising their clients. So a lot of different perspectives they want to keep in mind. But nonetheless, I think the
Cool.
advice that you're going to be able to share will be helpful. And we also have people who have never looked at LiveFlow before as well. So we got a whole host of different people joining our webinar here today.
Awesome. Looking forward to sharing more.
Excellent. Perfect. We also, oh, I see Joanna that's a personal, hello, hope you're doing well. She's also in Chicago. I know budgeting has been top of mind with her for a few weeks. So excited to share some of the things that we've got cooking here. All right, we're going to close the poll now, and let's see what we have. And then Maya, whenever you're ready, we'll take a look at some of the answers that have been provided by our audience here. Cheryl's very enthusiastic in the chat. Budget 2026, 2006 actually. It's great. All right, here we go. Oh, I didn't even know Zoom did this, where it looks like it's put it all together in like a word chart. I don't know what to call these charts, but it looks like plan was the number one answer. Time, consuming, uncertainty, swamped, difficult, spreadsheets, scalability. Excellent. Yeah, that seems fairly consistent with some of the customer interviews that we had. And looks like from those who have joined, it looks like it takes about 11 to 20 hours to kind of go through this budgeting process. How about you, Daniel? Is it around that time? I know we'll get into the details.
Yeah, I'd say at least at least 20 feels reasonable. I think it's gonna depend on lots of different factors, but yeah, at least 20 on my end, I'd say. And I'm
Nice.
thinking like over the course of the year, not just budgeting, but we like to reforecast a couple times as well.
Absolutely. Great. And then we'll go to our last question here, which is what is the most difficult part about creating an annual budget for your company and or the clients you service? So it looks like coordination between the departments is our number one answer. And then the time investment. So maybe that's something you mentioned, Daniel, is you got to go through this reforecasting process. But it
Yep.
looks like that spreadsheet wrangling coming in third. But yeah, coordinating between all these different stakeholders, I'm sure is a challenging task. Great. So that
Oh
kind
yeah.
of opens up our survey and got to know the chat's all working. And Maya, perfect. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and just give a quick overview of what we're going to be covering in today's webinar. Okay. And so you should be seeing my screen right now.
Yep.
Excellent. So what we have for today's agenda is, of course, we had that survey. Next, we're going to delve into Daniel and give his perspective. I'm going to do a more formalized intro about how he explored different softwares, different solutions to automate certain workflows, and his theme of crawl, walk, run, and how LiveFlow is able to enable him to do that. Then we're actually going to go directly into the product, and Daniel's going to be able to share within his workflow using the consolidation product and how we leverage that for FinanceIQ. So sharing his screen exactly so you get an inside look. Then we're going to be looking at the product roadmap for FinanceIQ, which is our budgeting and forecasting platform. And of course, everybody's talking about it, but the AI exploration that LiveFlow is doing as well to make this process even easier. And we'll of course then have the Q&A section for our audience. And on that note, if you do have questions, we welcome it. And please do keep the chat active and ask any question that you have. I will try my best to stay on track, and if it is topical, I'll ask it in a moment. But of course, there may be times where we will take some of those questions towards the end. But that's our agenda today. And so now what I'll do is I will now introduce Daniel. Daniel is the VP of Finance at Milk Movement. I've gotten a chance to know Daniel over the past about 8 or 9 months, and he is one of the key people that I look to when building FinanceIQ, as I was the product manager for FinanceIQ. And his advice in terms of how he goes about budgeting, where his company is at, has been instrumental in developing the product itself. But Daniel, thanks so much for joining us here at LiveFlow's welcome here.
Yeah, of course. No, thanks for having me. Really excited to share more.
Perfect. So we've got a lot of different people within our Zoom. And the first thing that I want to ask is just to give yourself a little bit of an overview of kind of your background and what your role
Yeah.
is at Milk Movement.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I'm trained as a CPA. I've had a career that kind of spans really large corporate environments. Spent a bit of time in investment banking, and the most recent phase of my career has been focused on startups and scale ups. Typically, either establishing a finance function with I like to say like a strategic focus, really. And at Milk Movement, I was brought in as VP of Finance. And the way I think of my finance team is we have a few key team members internally. We really heavily leverage external resources as well. So our day-to-day bookkeeping is largely outsourced. And for me, ultimately, like the goal here is to be a strategic partner to folks across the organization, our leadership team, our board, et cetera, et cetera. And building a modern tech stack is a really important part of being able to achieve that mandate of being a strategic partner. I think finance is increasingly moving away from like the day-to-day operational stuff, which tools like LiveFlow have made very easy to automate in many ways. And so yeah, just excited about continuing to explore technology and whatnot, and seeing how we can ultimately deliver more value to our stakeholders, internal and external as well.
Yeah, and could you share just a little bit about what is Milk Movement? And for those
Yeah,
who may
yeah,
be, what exactly
yeah.
does Milk Movement do, and what is Daniel's role there? That'll be
Yeah, yeah,
helpful
yeah.
to give a little bit more context.
Good.
That'd be great.
Good question. I entirely forgot that part. Yeah, so Milk Movement, we're an enterprise software company. As the name implies, we operate in the dairy supply chain. So ultimately, like our mission is to help dairy co-ops and dairy processors. So those are the folks that are either producing the milk or doing something cool with the milk, making cheese, ice cream, products like that. Help them get a better understanding of their supply chain and get the right milk to the right place at the right time. That's kind of like how we phrase it. And yeah, like I said, I'm here as our VP of Finance, and again, I see my role as being that partner, leveraging the financial and operational data that we have to help our team make informed decisions. And ultimately, I think that is increasingly the mandate of folks across, across various other companies from a finance lens. So it's been an exciting time. I've been here a little over a year and a half now, and it's been cool seeing the growth. Cool working with folks like you to really get a modern tech stack up and running.
Great. And you mentioned that growth. What do you think is the biggest challenge your team faced when managing financial data before LiveFlow came into the picture?
Yeah, so we're mostly a QuickBooks shop, and prior to my joining, effectively everything we were doing was offline in spreadsheets. In fact, we were using largely Excel, so it was just like we had sheets kind of just stored everywhere and anywhere. My having worked in startups for a little while now, I really appreciated being able to use Google Sheets and the collaboration that enabled. I know there's going to be some purists out there who prefer Excel, and the great thing is LiveFlow kind of services both those markets. But effectively, we were doing all our work in spreadsheets, and there's no real tooling to connect the dots and enable any sort of automation. So when it came to consolidation, as an example, we would literally just take our QuickBooks outputs of our different entities, and we had like a manual mapping document, and we would wait until our books were closed, which that took quite a while. That's a separate story, to be quite honest. But after everything was closed, we'd consolidate everything manually. It was a time-consuming, error-prone process. Anytime there would be any evolution in how we want to present our financials, we'd have to manually go in, make sure all of our spreadsheets were updated accordingly. It's a huge pain in the butt. I mean, once you get it set up, it is relatively straightforward, but it is kind of static, and it does not evolve and doesn't enable for easy changes or anything like that. And so that was kind of the status of our team when we started exploring our options out there. We looked at lots of different tools. Ultimately, for us, like the interesting thing about LiveFlow was how user friendly it was, and how since it integrated directly with Excel and QuickBooks and Google Sheets, we were very easily able to just like pull data in. And I've lived, past lives as a head of finance at other startups where I tried to do it all manually, and I'm like, hey, I'm not going to spend any money. Like, finance is not allowed to spend money. Like that was my mindset. It's like, we're here to control and be cost conscious, and ultimately kind of realized that was like really not the right approach, and we needed to invest in the right tools and whatnot. And so being able to adopt something like LiveFlow that lived on top of our existing tool set and was really user friendly, and evolved with us, was a great decision. And it was really the first kind of tool upon which we've kind of built our tech stack since.
Got it. And when you talk about this evaluation process, and then eventually you gave LiveFlow the chance, of course, to kind of help automate some of the most painful aspects of consolidating financial statements.
Mm-hmm.
You use this analogy, I think it was crawl, walk, run, and how LiveFlow
Yeah,
enabled
yeah.
you to go through that journey. So I was wondering if you could just touch on what that exactly meant for you for Milk Movement and what those different stages meant.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I've used this phrase crawl, walk, run quite a bit, and for us, it meant that we weren't necessarily looking for one tool that would try to solve all of our problems all at once. We very much wanted to kind of adopt on a piecemeal basis. Again, we have a relatively small finance team, and I'm of the opinion that finance teams are increasingly going to be asked to do more with existing resources, and so we knew we'd have to stretch, and so couldn't take on like some massive project of like implementing, a new ERP from the ground up to just to kind of solve our problems. We have a handful of entities across a couple different countries like Canada and the US, largely for us. And so the first thing for us was figuring out what are our processes internally and what's causing us the most pain, and what would enable us to give more useful information to our stakeholders faster. And for us, the lowest hanging fruit there was really the consolidation process. It's something that we build a lot on top of that consolidation process, like having a solid set of consolidated financials. We could then build our financial model, which we use for all of our forecasting. And then on top of that, we can build our FP&A process of understanding how we're performing relative to our forecasts and so on and so forth. So it was very much like, let's start with something. I say simple, it's not simple, but let's start with something relatively, constrained, like it's a very specific thing we're trying to solve. And then from there, we'll add on more and more, and we'll tackle other problems. And eventually, like now, of course, we're working with LiveFlow on FinanceIQ and really now optimizing our forecasting process and the collaboration that we have there internally. So that's really what we meant. And now, I would say right now we're probably at the walk phase, and we're increasingly moving towards that run because we've automated a ton of stuff. We've made it very easy for us to kind of run different scenarios and update financials and all that. So now the next step is, hey, how do we deliver more valuable analyses and whatnot? So that's how I thought about it. Start small and then keep adding things on
Yeah.
top.
And just to give some additional context for those in our audience, how many entities does Milk Movement have today? And are they all with USD, or I think you mentioned one of them multi-currency?
Yeah. So we technically have two entities, a Canadian entity and a US entity. In the context of LiveFlow, that actually, and we're very heavy users of classes within QuickBooks. And I was looking at our instance of LiveFlow just yesterday, and in the way that we've kind of set it up, it actually ends up being many more entities. It's probably closer to like 10 or so, just given each class. We want to kind of be able to customize it in that way. But we have two primary entities from a sort of legal perspective, and yeah, multiple currencies there.
Got it. And now that you're in this budgeting season, what does that process look like for you today in terms of the different stakeholders that you interact with? And how does Finance IQ kind of play into that?
Yeah, great question. So for me, there's like two sort of key workflows that are happening. One is sort of the workflow that I run with our CEO, our board. This is sort of like the top-down view of I'm broadly setting sort of parameters for what are we expecting in terms of revenue next year? What are we expecting in terms of the bottom line? And so like very much like what are we operating? What are the bounds within which we expect to operate next year? And that's very much like a strategic conversation around our product roadmap, our sales pipeline, et cetera, et cetera. And then, so, that's kind of setting broad context. And then separately, I'm having a bottoms up conversation with each of our leaders internally, our CTO, our CRO, our COO, et cetera, to get them involved in understanding, hey, these are the bounds that we've kind of set at the top. How are we going to get there? How are we going to achieve these growth numbers? What resources do we need? So that bottoms up view is very much like working directly with these folks using LiveFlow and Finance IQ to give them easy to use templates where we can collect data from them and collect their inputs for our budget.
Yep.
consolidating them all in one place, and then being able to sort of make decisions accordingly and ultimately come to a consensus that we can all agree upon. Ultimately, you kind of find somewhere in the middle, right? Like you have this top-down view, you have this bottoms-up view. There's naturally going to be a gap between what everyone is asking for in terms of resources and what your expectations are, and the board and other folks' other stakeholders' expectations are. So it's about finding that middle ground between the two. So yeah, it's been an interesting process. That's how we're currently using it.
Great. And Kathy has a question here. Do you budget by class and do you load those budgets in QuickBooks by class?
So great question. We don't use the QuickBooks budgeting tool. We have tried. It was cumbersome. It was not fun to use at all. We very much use like LiveFlow's FinanceIQ tool. So we do effective, like for us, imagine the classes, the way they work in practice are, we have a class for our sales team. So all their expenses and whatnot will be booked to that class. We have another class for our G&A team, which would include finance and a bunch of other stuff as it usually does. And so that'll be a separate class and so on and so forth. So yeah, we to answer your question in a straightforward way, yes, we are effectively budgeting by class, but we are not using the QuickBooks tool. It was not very user friendly, and so what we had defaulted to really was like having a spreadsheet where we had no version control, where we had no way to like I would share a budget with our board. A week later, someone would make some minor change, and I would have a separate version, and then it's like, okay, which is the one that's the actual truth that we're going to go forward with? And this was very much like before we started using FinanceIQ. So yeah, but that tells you kind of how bad the existing tools that we had were previous to this, because it just was not meeting our requirements at all.
Great, and we got some good reactions in the chat there. Relatable, says Grace. There's one last question before we're going to dive into the product itself, and that is I want to go back to when you didn't have any type of automation software, and we do have people who are joining in today in our audience who are in similar shoes, who may have just tuned in and said, okay, you know what, let me just hop on this call, and I'm thinking about using certain software to automate some of the more manual tasks. So what's one piece of advice that you would give to that VP of finance at a very much growing startup, perhaps, that may be helpful in this season, and as you're thinking about automation?
Yeah, honestly, I might go back to something I said earlier around trying to find specific sort of chunks of your workflow that you're able to automate and then go from there. And again, for us, it was like we first started with consolidation, and I don't want to make it seem like we solved this problem in the matter of like a week or two. It was it was an extended partnership, really. And I think that's another thing that we've appreciated with about working with you folks at LiveFlow and Joshua in particular is that partnership sort of perspective of, hey, as we've run into issues, we're the team's always been very willing to like step up and help us understand the platform and its capabilities and gaps and all of that. So for us, it was, hey, let's decide on we're gonna fix this piece first. Again, consolidation, and then from there, it's like, okay, what are the other areas where we can work together? The next one for us was budgeting and whatnot. Separately, we've also implemented tools outside of LiveFlow around revenue automation, so that now we have our entire sort of like contract to cash cycle has been largely automated. All of our revenue entries are more or less automated at this point. And we've automated sales tax, et cetera, et cetera. So those are all like very finite things that we kind of tackled. And we also, some lessons learned as well. I think in late 2024 and early 2025, we bit off a lot and tried to implement a ton of tools all at once. We also went through an HRIS implementation in that time. And all these things have, ultimately been super valuable and gotten us to a great place where we've cut our reporting timeline from like 15 plus business days down to about 2 or 3. So it's been great. It's been a piecemeal process in terms of getting there. But for me, again, it's like try to be very thoughtful about what you're tackling, and try to phase it as much as you can, and just be mindful of your team's availability and capacity and whatnot, because we definitely ran into some issues where we were just totally swamped. And this is not regarding LiveFlow in particular, because we had largely done a lot of that implementation before, but we took on a lot since then. So that's been an interesting learning.
Great. Okay, so I guess without further ado, to give our audience a glimpse of what your world actually looked like and how LiveFlow automated even consolidation, we'll take a quick glimpse there, and then we'll dive right into FinanceIQ, which is our budgeting and forecasting platform, and how you leverage those products. So it'd be great if you're able to share screen, Daniel, and give our audience a glimpse of what that looked like.
Yeah, of course. Also, I will share my screen and we'll get going.
And as you're pulling that up, we do see, of course, the questions in the chat. We will absolutely take those at the end. Don't think that I forgot about those. But Daniel, please take it away.
Cool. Awesome. So just setting some context up front, this is a sort of like a demo account. So you're not going to see everything here. As accountants, I think we tend to find all the little issues, and you will find many in this quick demo that we put together. But really here, the point is we're trying to illustrate what the workflow kind of looks like. So when you log into the LiveFlow web app, the first thing, again, that we did was we were really interested in getting our consolidation going and whatnot. So here we've kind of put together a quick idea of like, what does mapping actually look like and consolidation actually look like. And I realize here I've forgotten to unmap a couple things, so you're going to get to see what that looks like first, how unmapping looks like. But what you'll be presented with is a series of like accounts from QuickBooks here, and obviously I've skipped past the connection with your QuickBooks and whatnot. That's a series of quick and easy steps that you undertake. But we have all of our QuickBooks accounts here, two separate entities, and what I've done here is I've created a couple of separate income accounts. So again, like for us, why this was important is we had a really messy QuickBooks, in many ways looking much like what you see on the right-hand side of the screen, where we had lots of different accounts that we had, over time kind of developed for different use cases, et cetera, et cetera. But it wasn't very useful for the management team. It was way too much information. And we needed to find a way to make it very easy for folks to understand. We're a SaaS business. There's usually a pretty typical, SaaS mapping that folks will follow. There's lots of content online that you can use to kind of guide your decision making on mapping. But we had QuickBooks accounts on the right, and then we did some very quick mapping. So you really very quickly kind of just pick and choose. And this was a very interesting and easy way for us to kind of understand, what are the underlying accounts? How do we want to map it? Of course, we went through a very, thorough process of figuring out where we wanted to map various different things. And that's evolved over time. For us, we have our software revenue at Milk Moovement. We also have a big implementation or professional services part of our business. So we want to be able to see that a little bit separately, and so on and so forth. So very easy to map, like very intuitive, simple to use. You can go ahead and kind of map your COGS separately. You can map your expenses. I would typically have like different departments underneath here. And this is where for us classes was very important. So we had separate classes, we had separate departments, and I'll show you what that kind of looks like in practice. But this is basically what the mapping experience looks like. Very simple and straightforward, and intuitive for anyone to use.
Okay. Gotcha. And just as an example, so maybe for some of those who are new to LiveFlow, if we wanted to create an account, a consolidated account, how exactly, I know if we can just run through, okay, so if you have in the expense section, research and development, perfect.
So for us, like typically in SaaS, you're going to have like a G&A, a research and development, and sales and marketing are very common top level sort of accounts. And then within each, you're going to have a bunch of separate things, right? Like, so let's say we have wages and yada, yada, yada. There's gonna be a ton of stuff underneath here. And in a moment, I'll show you what it looks like more so in practice. But we've kind of created a few top level accounts, and then we'll decide, hey, what are we gonna map into here? So let's just pick G&A is gonna go here. R&D is gonna go, let's just say this is R&D wages specifically, so on and so forth. We have some advertising expenses here that we want to map. So we're just going to put them all under sales and marketing. So very quick and easy. You can even copy and paste things. Like if you have already your mapping that you would ideally like, and you have it in a spreadsheet or something, you can literally just like paste it all in here, and it'll automatically create those accounts for you. And then you can kind of go forward with your mapping. So again, it's very, I think, very intuitive for someone to use. Definitely much more intuitive than QuickBooks. I avoid going to QuickBooks as much as possible nowadays.
Got it. Perfect. And we have Joanna says it's like mapping is like playing with puzzles. And I think that's the right
It
idea
really is.
is that you have these GL accounts, it looks like on the right side here in the demo files, and
Yep.
you're able to select them as Daniel was, and then placing them into the consolidated account. And so what do you do from here, Daniel? So this is, you've done the mapping here, and now you generate a report somehow. How do you guys do that for Milk Movement?
Yeah, exactly. Really straightforward. So I'm going to turn here to a Google Sheet that we have. We go into this extensions piece right here, and we will create a report. And so this was kind of like the first step. So we've now done our mapping. That was a whole exercise. Then the next step was, okay, cool. Now we've like made our reporting much easier. And so we go into the LiveFlow sort of module that will pop up. We click through to create a report, and then you can choose, hey, what consolidation do you want? You might have different consolidation groups for different use cases. As an example, you might not want to run a consolidation group. You may just want to run results or reports from a particular entity. For the sake of this exercise, we're just going to look at the webinar consolidation group that we've created. I want to run P&L. For me, my favorite view is looking at the monthly view in our P&L. You have lots of different things that you can kind of do. You can customize it to however you like to view your business, and then very easily after you've kind of run all your customizations, you create a report. And so here we created a P&L report. It's consolidated. We're going to, I think in this case, it's going to show by company. But again, for me, I particularly might want to see it in the form of on a monthly basis. So we're going to click report.
Great.
Oh, clicked it multiple times. Apologies. So yeah, here you get a chance to see what it looks like in multiple different instances. So if you just want to see what the companies look side by side, and then in aggregate, here on a monthly basis, they've already been consolidated. What you'll notice here is in this version of the consolidated mapping, I've added a little bit more depth. So you can see I've kind of gone ahead and done I've created a bunch of additional accounts under sales and marketing and G&A and so on and so forth. You can have as much or as little depth as you please. And the great thing is, even within here, you can kind of customize this Excel or this Google Sheets report a little bit further. If you want to look at like ratios and whatnot, you can very easily do that right here. One thing I want to point out that was really valuable for us and really important for me to kind of set up early on was the very consistent sort of overall mapping between accounts. You'll notice generally these have, every account or every, let's say, department, in this case, like class is what is underlying these departments. We want to have very similar sort of accounts. So we have contractors. You're going to see contractors under sales and marketing as well. We have software. You're going to see software under sales and marketing and G&A as well. So as much as possible, we want to keep relatively consistent mapping department to department. Obviously, you're going to have unique things for different departments. Like sales has advertising is another thing that we have under our sales and marketing sort of department. We have commissions, et cetera, et cetera. So you're going to obviously design it in a way that works for you. But for me, it worked really well to have consistency because it gave us a common language to speak to. When we're sharing results with our leadership team, like being able to everyone kind of broadly understand what are the components that go into these departments was super helpful. So this is kind of step 2. We've done the consolidation, or we've done the mapping. Now we have very easy to run reports and whatnot. And then on top of this, now that we have a good, solid underlying set of financials, we built our financial model, which was ultimately tied very closely to, again, the departments that you see here. So I would literally be able to forecast advertising and commissions and contractors, et cetera, et cetera. And since my actuals and my forecasts are basically mapped in the exact same way, it made it very easy for me to understand how our business is performing relative to our budget and actuals and whatnot.
Yeah, one of the reasons I was eager to work with Daniel, these reminders like that it was very organized when you're looking at the profit and loss statement. In that, Daniel and his team, what they've done is, for each individual department, it seems like there's a section within the P&L that you've created for them using the
Yeah.
consolidation product. If that's an accurate assessment, Daniel.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And again, you're going to see here, these are all dummy numbers. So this is not necessarily reflective of how how the actual
Yeah,
underlying numbers work. In practice, all of these accounts are like fully like filled out with expenses and whatnot. And so, yeah, it was very important for me to be able to have a logical flow to these things. Because again, when you're doing forecasting, and a lot of my time specifically is spent on modeling and sort of predicting the future based on historical expenses. When you don't have a good underlying mapping and a good connection between your historical data and how you're forecasting, it throws off all of your forecasting. And so it was important to
yeah,
me to have like a good underlying set of data to start with.
great. Perfect. And before we hop into Finance IQ,
Yeah.
there is one question with regards to how you go about, give me one second here. The question from Thomas is, do you map differently for the various classes or have a P&L by class?
So as of right now, we don't really have a P&L by class. All of our revenue kind of just goes into one, parent
Yep,
class, like whatever it might be. But we do have departmental, I would say P&Ls, but mostly it's all Ls because there's no revenue attached to any of the departments. So we have departmental sort of like expense mapping, which are again based on class in QuickBooks, and then we just have one big class that captures all of our revenue. But in theory, you could definitely have different classes. Like you could have like truly departmental P&Ls
yeah,
if that was something that you were interested in. For us, again, the departments are largely sales and marketing, research and development. These are like different aspects of the business, not necessarily individual businesses on their own, but you
great.
can theoretically definitely go down that path as well.
Great. And that segues well to the next part here, which is going into the product now for Finance
Yeah.
IQ. And Thomas, I see your question. Can departments be used in mapping process to allocate uh, segments within the profit and loss statement? So I think that's going to be answered in this next section, which is Finance IQ, where Daniel's
Yeah.
at this point created the consolidation group. He now has a profit and loss statement in which he structured it by department in this manner. And now we're going to walk through how he was able to leverage the consolidation mappings that he's created for his budgeting process.
Yeah, exactly. So here we're going to turn back to the LiveFlow web app. We go into Finance IQ. I'm just going to start from scratch and we're going to create a new budget template. We're going to just call this 2026. And we're going to select a date range. It's going to be next fiscal year. We want to, in this case, again, if you were interested, you could kind of make a budget for different entities and whatnot. We are, in this case, interested in using, the consolidation group that we already created, because that's, again, how we think about our business, at least. I've previously gone in and created a couple departments. Creating a new department, again, very easy. We can call it other if we just want to, just for the sake of what we're doing here. You can add team members just via email, very easy and straightforward. In this case, let's just say I want to add myself. So we have another department here. Now, let's go ahead and like turn
So
all
I just
these
have a
on
quick.
for the, yeah, of course, go on.
Oh yeah, no, I just want to, I know you're probably an expert on this, but in terms of what we're doing here, right? So in this first step, it seems like you identified we're using and referencing the consolidation group, which was another aspect of the
Mhm.
product. Now we're introducing
Yep.
this new concept, which is departments. So is
Yep.
that different from how you organize your P&L or what exactly is uncovered in this part here?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Great question. So for us, each department is going to map very closely to the what I shared earlier in terms of like the classes or how we've organized our P&L. So as an example, I've created a couple of dummy accounts here, finance and other aren't actual departments that we have. But research and development, as an example, is a department. I would include, my CTO here as an example. Again, here I've
Got
included
it.
myself, but that's the intent there. And here as well, under sales and marketing, that's another department that we looked at a few moments earlier. I would include our CRO here as an example. And you can add and subtract folks and have as many folks involved as you'd
Excellent.
really like. Yeah.
Cool. And so now that we've defined the people who are going to contribute to the budget, what happens next?
Mhm. Yeah, so we are going to click continue, and now you're gonna, find yourself in a very similar sort of mapping sort of tool as what we had under consolidation. So here, as an example, what I want to do is I want to assign certain consolidated accounts to certain team members, or let's say certain departments, so that they can go out and provide me with their inputs. And this is what makes this really enables easy version control. It allows you to better collaborate with your teams because they each have like a certain subset of data that they'll be looking at and whatnot, or they'll be responsible for submitting, let's say. So in this case, let's just say we want to focus on expenses. I'm working with my, let's say our engineering leader, and I want to map, in this case, let's just say all these R&D accounts that we created earlier. I want to map them to the R&D department. Really simple and straightforward. If you want to map like multiple things to multiple different people, you're able to. I can, again, if I wanted to, just for the sake of being able to demonstrate this, we can also assign these to finance. So now both finance and the research and development department can submit their their budgets for this specific department, and
So
then we'll kind of continue.
oh yeah, if we go back
Sorry, go on.
one step, sorry. I know this is
Of
an
course,
interface that maybe if we go back to that expense section. Now it may be
of
confusing
course.
initially when you take a look. Okay, so we have our research and development department on the left side, and then we have a section
Mhm.
on the right side. So just so that everybody's aware, what we're doing here is we're assigning these accounts, these consolidated
Mhm.
accounts to the right people. And so that's what Daniel's been
Yep,
able to say is, okay, for these research and development accounts, we want to get contribution from these people or these departments. And so that's what we've
exactly.
done in this step here.
Yeah, exactly. And this is why for us it was very important, like, to kind of have consistency in how we think about our reporting, our consolidation, and how we actually forecast as well. Like,
Great.
we've tried as much as possible to keep both of those as similar as possible. So yeah, exactly. You got it totally right. What I might also do is, let's go. We have all these sales and marketing related sort of accounts that we have here, and we want to map them to the department, sales and marketing, so that they will be able to submit their sales and marketing budget
Excellent.
for next year.
Perfect.
So we're going to click continue. And now these folks will, so I've been assigned research and development here, and Josh has been assigned sales and marketing. Obviously, you will have your own sort of like individual leaders that are assigned. You can have multiple folks assigned as well. And then we're going to publish this budget. So we're going to click publish. And now you see that we have a bit of a sort of like a detailed view of our P&L. That, again, there's nothing here because nothing has been submitted. So this is a blank view. We can kind of dig into different departments. Again, no departments have submitted, so there's nothing to see here. That's what we're going to work on right now. So we turn back over here into LiveFlow, and we click this little button over here. And again, just to kind of reiterate in terms of how we get here, we'll go to create reports, let's just say, and click here, click into FinanceIQ. And now in this case, we want to open up and prepare a new budget. Click into this 2026 budget. We select a department. In this case, I am taking on the role of, let's say, the research and development leader, but in practice, you will, your actual R&D leader may be taking part in this. And we're going to create a budget input sheet. And moments later, we have a really clean and easy input sheet that our team members can start to fill in. And so the way this is typically kind of provided is on a monthly basis. They'll get all the accounts that were assigned to them. So again, if we think back to a moment earlier when we were in the LiveFlow tool, we took all those research and development accounts and we assigned it to the research and development department. And so you see those here. And now that leader can go in and very easily, let's just say they want to spend 100,000 per month. 100,000 per month on contractors, and they'll go ahead and fill in all this 10,000 a month on software and 100 a month on travel. These are just like entirely made up, and 200,000 a month, or let's say 2 million a month on wages. Again, this is all just for the sake of argument. We're trying to illustrate this quickly. So these are their submissions. for the period. Now they're going
And
to
so just
click
to pause
submit.
there, in terms of process-wise, so this is the sheet that you share with the department head. Is that so? This is the sheet that you share with the
Exactly.
R&D department. Is that right?
Exactly. So this gives them a specific place to submit their, just their inputs. And of course, there's a lot more to this. Like we're skipping over a lot of the meat. This is like the tool that facilitates a lot of the budgeting process. It does not do the budgeting process for you. Obviously, a big part of this is going to be working with this leader, providing them with context. Say, how much did you actually spend on software last year? Like looking at all the different tools that they might have used and understanding what stays, what goes. You might do
I
this
see.
on, you might do like a zero-based budget where you literally tell them to start from scratch and make an argument for like every single item, or you might start with the last year as a starting point. So this is
Okay.
very much the tool for them to submit everything. What I like to do is start by providing them all the context that they need. So we'll work through the last year's P&L for their team, their departmental P&L, see what they spent last year, work with them to understand what were all the tools that they used, what is our, what capacity do we have to invest in more. And this is again where the top down versus bottoms up approach is really valuable, because tops down, I know that the board and our management team and I have kind of set a high level growth target. We've set a high level profitability target. And so we're going to use that context to inform all of what we're preparing here. So we've gathered inputs based on all of our conversations. We go into LiveFlow again. Previously, we're on the Prepare tab. We move over to the Submit tab. We're submitting to the 2026 budgets. In this case, we are submitting this budget right here, and we're going to click this very, this upload button right here. And now this budget's been submitted. So we go back into LiveFlow itself, and you'll notice that the web app now has this little one beside the individual budgets. So here I have an opportunity now to view the budget that was submitted by this team. And again, you're going to see that they've submitted this budget for travel, wages, contractors, et cetera, for that specific department. I have the option now to reject or accept. Let's just say we're going to accept it. And now we have all of those expenses that were submitted by that team captured here. And now, as the year goes on, we're going to be able to compare actuals to forecasts. And since our forecast and our actuals are both prepared based on the same mapping, you know that you're comparing apples to apples, and you're not comparing two totally different accounts. And so, yeah, that's what it kind of looks like, getting all this information into LiveFlow. And now I think what this gives you is confidence that you have a version of the truth. And obviously you might have revisions and whatnot that you're going to kind of develop over time. Like you're not going to get one shot to the final budget. You're going to go back and forth a little bit. So you can create multiple budgets in here until you get to the point where you're comfortable, and at that point it's locked in. You have confidence that the version control is there.
Excellent. And now let's go to the actual creation of the budget versus actuals. And there's a good number of questions with regards to the departments that are created to LiveFlow. How does that relate to classes potentially? Is that what you're using when it comes to creating the actuals figure? So I'd love to kind of jump in there and see how we create the budget versus actuals.
Yeah, so we'll create a budget versus actuals here. So in this case, again, we've kind of clicked into the LiveFlow tool that you have here. We decide to create a new report. We're going to again use the same sort of class or same source as we have been for the last few minutes. We're going to click down to the budget versus actuals report. In this case, I'm going to be showing you a slightly different version. I don't believe we have actuals in here for 2026. So, let's just see what it looks like if we do decide to go down that path, what happens. And in this case, we want to use the consolidation group that we've already created. We want to use the 2026 budget that we've been developing. And we're going to look at it by month. And there's other customizations and whatnot that you can do, but we're going to just very quickly see what this outputs. It's going to take a moment or so to gather its thoughts.
Yeah, so there's some good questions with regards to Eric asking, can we relate this to class, etc. And actually, maybe we'll touch on that after you kind of complete this, Daniel.
Yeah. So in this case, of course, like we don't have a, it's still only October of 2025, so there's no actuals to look at, but you can very easily create the report and then refresh this on an ongoing basis to be able to see, hey, like this is what the standard sort of budget versus actual report looks like. Looks like there's some dummy data in certain periods starting in April or so. And so here, very easily, you'll be able to understand what do we forecast, what were the actuals, what was the variance for the entirety of the year. And then as the year kind of goes on, what I do is we again go into LiveFlow. We, in this case, we want to manage this report, and then we'll just like refresh as actuals kind of come in throughout the year. We go here and we'll just refresh, and the new data will kind of populate throughout the year, and you'll have a very easy single place to go that'll tell you, hey, how did you perform compared to the expectations that you had set for yourself. And again, here we don't have all the data mapped, but you can kind of, I think, get an understanding of what it would look like in practice.
Got it. And so now we're kind of taking a step back in terms of what you've done overall for those who maybe tune in a little bit later. We started out in creating a consolidation group. Then what we did, to my understanding here, is that you have different departments within Milk Movement, and you created departments that are what we think independent of anything in QuickBooks Online, right? So we created a finance department, an R&D department within LiveFlow's app, and that was step 2 of what we saw in FinanceIQ. Then it was selecting the R&D accounts and placing them into the R&D department that was created in LiveFlow. And that created our template. What Daniel was able to then do is, if we look at that other sheet that we've created, our input sheet, this is what the, I think the sheet to the left of that. Yep, no problem.
I have a lot on my screen, so I'm just moving a few things out of the way. Apologies.
Oh, good. So this is then the input sheet that the R&D, the head of R&D may look at, and Daniel provides some additional information with regards to maybe what did you spend last year to help inform what should we budget for R&D for the upcoming year. And then what we did is we uploaded those values to LiveFlow's database. Daniel, who's in charge and wants control over the process in this sense, in making sure that, okay, before there's several different spreadsheets and you don't really have version control, you hit the approve button, and that's what's going to feed into the budget versus actuals. Is that a correct summary, Daniel, or is there anything that I missed in terms of the process, and or what was the main thing that you kind of benefited from by having this system as opposed to what you were using before? Maybe it was just spreadsheet wrangling in that sense.
I think you got it largely right. Underlying a lot of this, of course, was like the concept of classes as well, which again, like the way that we manage classes is we consider classes to be a department. So our R&D class in QuickBooks is what you see here as well. It's the R&D department on our P&L. So for us, it's a one-to-one. We had to do that mapping. We had to, we decided, hey, what's the level of detail we're going to show on our P&L with respect to the R&D account. But yeah, we think of the classes and departments as one, and sort of mapped accordingly. And what this ultimately achieved for us is we now have a clean set of financials that is actually usable by our management team, because they understand what, I think in common plain English, like what are these accounts, what is underlying them, what goes into them. So that was the usability was significantly better. The speed is meaningfully better because we're able to like update our actuals and our budget at a moment's notice. Quickly click refresh, and within seconds you have everything updated. So that's really helped our workflows. And then version control is another aspect. We now know that this is the budget that we agreed upon. We can name it accordingly and ensure that is saved in LiveFlow. This is not going to sync back into QuickBooks. Like this is stored in LiveFlow. I can be confident that this is the one that we agreed upon and whatnot. And then lastly, because we are now able to create these input sheets for all of our different leaders who are going to be submitting a budget, it's really improved our collaboration as well, because I can kind of give them a one-stop shop for them to submit their details. Obviously, here we're showing you just like the input page, but in practice, I'm also providing a bunch of supplementary data as well. And that might be software data, like how much software spend did you have, what did you use, et cetera, et cetera. And then again, gives them a single place where they can go in. And this also ensures that we're not giving them information that they should not have access to as well, right? Like previously, I basically just had a model that would walk them through in practice, but we had one model because I wasn't going to go maintain multiple different ones. And that meant like, there's a world where they could see data that they might not be, or they shouldn't be privy to, like payroll data, as an example. So in this way, we're able to like make sure they only see what we want them to see, and only submit what we want them to submit. And it just gives us much more control and confidence.
Great. Thanks so much, Daniel. That's an inside look at what Milk Movement was able to do with leveraging these different products, and hopefully it allows you to do the crawl, the crawl, walk, run that Daniel's done for him and his team. And so, Daniel, if it's all right, I can go ahead and actually share my screen, and with 5 minutes remaining, I'll share a little bit about where we're headed with FinanceIQ, and hopefully it gets some of our audience members excited on the path forward here. Give me 1 second here. Yeah, give me a thumbs up. Are you able to see my screen? Okay, great. All right. So, actually, before I go onward, I do want to thank our engineers who have worked on FinanceIQ for the past 8-9 months. That includes Doug, Monica, and David, who joined about 3-4 months back. Who've been working hard here, and hopefully the things you're seeing, we come to life eventually. But a lot of the things we're headed towards is based on feedback that we get from our customers, including Daniel. And so the first one is actually something we're going to release hopefully tomorrow to our customer base, if not early next week. And that is providing context for our departments. And so when talking with Daniel, one of the key things that he mentioned is providing last year's actual data to be able to inform that department head, hey, this is what you spent in 2025 for, let's just say, online sales. Well, maybe in 2026, that is going to be slightly higher or lower, right? So giving them that context, so there's less back and forth. Maybe there's less meetings in the sense of, hey, I don't know what I spent last year. Maybe you're creating formulas to kind of give them this information. We're looking to allow your department heads to have that context when creating the template sheet in itself. So there's that less back and forth. In terms of other updates, reforecasting is something that is very topical, right? So today, everybody's in key budgeting season, and between now and the end of the year, you create that annual budget. But what happens in Q1, Q2, Q3? These budgets are not a static document, as Daniel mentioned. It's actually a living document where there are changes that happen over the course of the year. So how are we going to be able to allow Daniel and his team, along with his department leaders, to be able to reforecast for upcoming periods? So it's not that we're going to lose the original submissions that Daniel's provided in the beginning of the year, and that's a lot of budget. But now we can actually revise those figures, and that's what we're seeing on the screen here is this Q1 reforecast. And the hope is that by the end of the year, that we have all this information and we're able to make this process, this reforecasting process, easier in itself. Department helpers. So once again, this is just AI exploration, and the way in which we learn and drive direction is based on our customers. So I don't want you to think, hey, this is going to be something overnight, but more so being able to actually make this a far more intuitive product. Right now, I think everybody is in the headspace that spreadsheets can be super helpful for people in finance. But for those who are not on the call, maybe those who are department heads, they may not be as familiar with navigating spreadsheets. So we're also exploring this idea of, well, can we make it a lot more friendly of a process? So it's not something like scratching your nails against a chalkboard for a department head, or Daniel asking a reminder saying, hey, did you guys submit your budgets? Is can we make it a little bit more active and have an AI assistant for each one of the marketing head or the R&D head to provide them a little bit more context and making this a little bit easier of a process. And then lastly, I'll just touch on this, which is what happens once the budgets are set, right? you have all these different values, you have actual figures, and you want to do analysis. So once the budgets are there, is there any way in which we can leverage the technology that's out there, or artificial intelligence, to be able to look down across all hundreds of transactions that may be under, in this example, the delivery fees, and then summarize what is the variance that is causing this? What are the drivers of this? And so we're exploring all these different ideas, but the most important part is that we look to our customer base to understand and figure out how we build and what to ship first. So those are the things that we're working on here. And then lastly, of course, is our sales team did want to kind of highlight this part, which is a special offer as this is budgeting season. FinanceIQ, which is our budgeting and forecasting platform, is $6,000 as the list price. We are giving a discount for the next 7 days, which is $1,000 off. So Maya in the chat will drop as well a personalized demo link, and that's where you're going to be able to, if you wanted to purchase this module and kind of experience what Daniel had, then you'd be able to do so. So that's our presentation for today, and I know it's at around 3 o'clock, but I want to pause there as we look into our Q&A for just another two minutes for anybody who's able to stick around. Okay. Give me 1 second here. And feel free to, if you see something, Daniel, let's see, I'm just gonna go. Yeah, so we had a lot of questions with regards to departments in QBO versus classes and this kind of separation, or how do these things link? So I don't know, Daniel, if you want to take this one, I'll give you my first shot at answering this question, which is the idea is that you're creating departments within LiveFlow. And these departments can be interpreted for whatever it may mean for you, right? So you may have 10 different people contributing to the budget, and you have 10 different departments in that scenario. That is not necessarily in classes within QuickBooks Online. However, when we generate a budget versus actuals report, the budget values are going to be tied to what you've defined in LiveFlow as LiveFlow departments. And then the actual values, we didn't touch on it in the webinar, but if you go into advanced filters, you're going to be able to select the class as well. So if you wanted to pull the let's just say you have an R&D department, the budget is coming from the R&D LiveFlow, but then if you go to advanced section, you'll be able to filter for the class R&D, and the actuals value will then be reflective of that as well. Hopefully answer that. Feel free, Daniel, if you have any additional notes on that one.
Yeah, I think you broadly got it correct. I think in our particular use case, we've tried to keep it very simple. And for us, we've directly mapped the departments that we have in, that we created in LiveFlow with what the classes that we have in QuickBooks. So you can, like, if you want a one-to-one relation, you can do that. That was the approach that we took. But yeah, you're totally right. Like, if you wanted some additional level of granularity there, you can also explore that and run it in different ways.
Great. We have a question from Kathy. Can you use LiveFlow for cash forecasting? I don't know if that's ever been done. Daniel, if you're going to take that one.
So, good question. I do have a cash forecast that presently lives in my financial model within LiveFlow, at least right now. And Josh, you can correct me if I'm right here. The FinanceIQ tool is largely income statement focused at the moment, and there's no cash flow or budget or balance sheet upload tool. I'm going to say yet, because I assume that at some point I imagine it's on the way. But as of right now, I kind of manage that separately.
Great. And I think this answers Thomas's question, which is, do you budget by balance sheet, loans, AR, inventory, accruals, prepaid? Yeah. Great. But as Daniel mentioned, we don't have that necessarily right now. So everything that you're seeing within FinanceIQ was the profit and loss statement. Great. We have some questions with regards to licenses, etc. So Grace, on that one, can CPA firms buy one license for the whole firm? We need separate license for each client company. We'll need to understand a little bit further, but it is the module of $6,000. So feel free to book a demo with our sales team, and Maya can drop that link again, and they'll be able to answer all questions with regards to how you can gain access to the product this week. Okay. Great. Okay, I'm just making sure that we answered as many as we could here. Okay, Thomas is, we'll take one more. FinanceIQ user here. Once the budget is approved, finalized, you can manage the budget versus actual report and filter. Oh, I think Thomas was answering an earlier question that we had, so appreciated that. He was asking, I guess, or clarifying the class functionality. So that was not a question. More in the Q&A. Got it. Do you use locations within the classes, Daniel?
For us, locations aren't a relevant sort of aspect. So no, we don't use it. But again, I imagine you could.
Got it. Do you use LiveFlow on for budget? Oh, do you use LiveFlow on for budgeting and management report, or do you use it for statutory tax and audit prep?
Good question. For us, it's largely budgeting and managing, like for management reporting and whatnot. We will use it from time to time, like if there's a one-off report that someone has requested, even if our auditors request, a set of our financials. The first version we typically send would be the management report out of LiveFlow, like the P&L, balance sheet, income statement, or cash flow statement out of LiveFlow. Of course, usually they want a little bit more information than that, so we'll provide it as necessary. But for us, it's very much like that is how we think of our business. So LiveFlow is kind of the place that we go first.
Excellent. I know we're 5 minutes over. And so I do want to take an opportunity to thank everybody who's joined the webinar. If you have any additional questions, feel free to email me, josh@liveflow.io, with regards to the product functionality. Daniel, of course, thank you so much for taking the time and kind of sharing your experience from the crawl, walk, run that you've experienced with LiveFlow. Excited to continue partnering with you, and hope everyone found this session helpful. And if I don't see you soon, as we enter the last quarter of the year, best of luck in the budget season. Hopefully we can help. And otherwise, talk soon in any customer calls you guys have with us.
Awesome. Yeah. No, thanks for having us.
Thanks, everyone.
Cool. Goodbye.